Music theory with Microsoft Excel. Modal chords built from notes outside the 7-note collection. In other words, from our Earth analogy, building chords from the 5 ocean notes. Part number 4. So get ready and some coffee because you ain't never seen rockin' unless you excel at rockin', and you need Microsoft Excel. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Those people in the music schools and whatnot that don't adhere to the Microsoft, they don't know what they. Here we are in Excel. If you don't have access to this workbook, that's okay because we basically built this from a blank worksheet but started in a prior presentation. So if you want to build this entire worksheet from a blank sheet, you could begin back there or just follow along, possibly building the part of the worksheet we're currently working on. If you do have access to this workbook, though, 4 tabs down below, including a very colorful fretboard tab we may refer to, the example tab, in essence, the answer key, the practice tab having pre-formatted cells. So you can practice the practice problem with less Excel formatting, but if you do not have any of that, that is okay, because we're going to continue to work in the blank tab where we started from scratch with a blank worksheet, continuing in essence in the blank part of the worksheet, practicing not only our music skills, but our Excel formatting skills as well, for formatting's sake. Let's go on over to the start of the worksheet to give a reminder of our overall objective, what we've done in prior presentations, what we're going to do this time, and possibly in future presentations. We want to be mapping out our chord system in a way that's as functionally efficient as possible within the context of a song, providing not only the information about the actual points that you're going to hold down when playing a chord, but what its role might be in relation to the song that we're playing, as well as tie it into the conventional kind of chord naming convention. And so this time we're looking at those ocean notes. So in prior presentations, we mapped out all of our notes in the alphabet. We then named them based on the key of C with a relative position, which I'm calling the Nashville numbers. There are 7 of them, but now we're looking at those notes that are outside the collection of notes. So I don't want to change the collection of notes, but rather build chords off of the notes that are outside the collection so that I can still see them in context to what I'm playing in, meaning in context, they're the ocean notes. I'm playing something outside the collection. So we've then given them a number like this, or a name for these 7 nodes, and the ones in the ocean, I'm going to say have a plus next to it to indicate that they're going to be a half step up. And that's going to be the Ionian plus, the Dorian plus, the Lydian plus, the Mixolydian plus, the Aeolian plus. Those are the ocean notes, I'm calling them. There is no Phrygian plus. There's only 5 of them. And that's because this one is 2 continents stuck together. There's no ocean between them. All right, and then we have, these are going to be the notes in the collection of notes for the key of C, which is what we will work in, but the concept applies to all 12 collections of 7 notes. Here's our Nashville numbers. Here's another way that we can have these 7 modal points with just the first 3 letters: Ion, Dor, Fri, Lid, Mix, Aeoloc. And then we have the name in terms of another abbreviated format. We then mapped out all of the chord information with the 7-note collections, giving us the normal naming convention, as well as a naming convention that removes the letter and replaces it with the relative Ionian node so that it would be automatically transferable, noting that gives us context within the song, because if we don't have that context of the modal point and just have the letter, it doesn't give us the information about how our perspective is that we're looking at the music. Which collection of notes are we viewing it from? Typically, almost everyone in Western music views the collection of notes in some way. They have a perspective that they're painting in. The palette that they have in their mind that they're currently working with is going to be one of 12 collections of 7 notes, with one of those notes in the collection being the focal point, the center point. So we map these out for these 7-note collections, and now we're working on the ones in the ocean, meaning, like, if I'm naming the node by the 7 notes in the collection, how do I name the 5 points that are in the ocean if I'm building a chord off of those points? So we looked at it for the Ionian and the Lydian. So if I go back to the fretboard tab just to reiterate the problem, If for example, I'm playing in this collection of notes and I'm playing around the Aeolian, which happens to be right here, then it's quite common for us to say, well, maybe here's an Aeolian, chord like this. Let's bring this back to here. But let's say that I want to lead into that Aeolian, meaning I want a chord built off of this note. That's kind of common to do. So that if I moved it this way, I can still call it a minor, or maybe I want to adjust it in some way, shape, or form to have it be a diminished or something like that. Maybe I have it up here and I make some kind of diminished chord. The point is that I don't want to renumber the entire collection of notes in order to name this chord, which is outside the collection of notes. I want to tell my reader and myself when I look at my music that I've written down that I'm choosing a note that's outside the collection. That gives me context to see which collection of notes I'm in, not confuse people when they're looking at complex songs to try to figure out which key they're in. You should just tell them, right? And I'm going to tell them this note is going to be a Mixolydian ocean note or a 5.5 note that has a shape that I'm going to say is a Locrian shape, or you might say a diminished chord shape. I would call it a Locrian shape. And that'll give us more context. We know that by shape on the fretboard. Now, I also would like to name it by relative points, not scale degrees, but the relative modal points from the perspective, in this case, of the collection of notes around the key of C, which is what we're playing in with the A as the tonic. So that gets a little bit more messy because then we have to use half steps to map that out, but it's possible to do. And if you were to memorize those common chords and the modal points, they would all be the same for all 12 collections of 7 notes for all modal perspectives, which would be nice. So let's go on over to the blank tab, and we left off on the Lydian. I'm going to copy the Ionian down. The reason I'm not going to copy the Lydian down to do the next one is because we made some absolute references here on the Ionian, which I can copy down. And then when I go down here, I removed those absolute references to copy them across. So now I can copy this one and then remove them and always go back to this one to copy and remove. That will be the technique. So I'm going to copy this whole bit and I'm going to say, all right, there's 5 ocean note chords. Let's copy this all the way across. And now we're going to bring this down and say we left off on the Lydian. So I'll do the next one that's next to the major, which is going to be the Mixolydian ocean. Mixolydian ocean 5.5. So I'm going to say this equals the Mixolydian up top, but then I want a plus next to it. So I'm going to go into it. I'm going to say it's going to be that and with an and button to tie it together, quotes plus end quotes. I'm going to try to do this a little bit faster because we saw this before, and I think we have it set up. I make this a little larger to see it. So now we're going to say, all right, this is the key that needs to be changed. It's going to be related to the collection of notes that we started our worksheet with, which happens to be absolute note number 4, which is a C. So I'm going to say this is the C up top, that 4. And I know that when I'm looking at the Mixolydian in relation to the collection of notes around the key of C, it's a G. So this one needs to be one higher than the G. A G is an 11. So I need this to be G sharp or 12, I believe. So I need to say 4 minus 12 is plus, I need another 8 here. So that's going to give us 12. I think that's correct. So now I'd like to basically make that so it doesn't go over 12 if I change the collection of notes by saying an if tab. I'm going to copy this. If this plus this is less than 13, meaning it can go up to 12 but not over, then do that plus that. If not, comma, do that plus that minus 12. Close it up, boom. So now, if I change my collection of notes from the collection of notes around the key of C to the collection of notes around the G, then it will change this automatically, but keep it into the local distance, giving us a 5, which happens to be a C sharp or D flat. Okay. So that's not the right one. It happens to be down here, Mixolydian, which is going to be a D sharp or E flat. Let's make this red so I can hopefully remember where I'm at. Let's make that one red. Let's go back to the collection of notes around the key of C, which is a 4. If I name all the notes from 1 to 12, the absolute note numbering. So now this, I'm going to call this a Mixolydian ocean, which has the abbreviation of X for Mixolydian because I didn't want an M because it looks like major and minor. It's going to be a G sharp or A flat if we're looking at the collection of notes around the key of C. So it's an ocean note of G sharp or A flat. So then the next thing I can fix is going to be my naming convention over here. Where is this coming from? So I'm going to say that is pulling it. Let's double click on it. So I'm going to take the right of this. That looks correct, but it's pulling it from the wrong cell. So this is, so the chords that I'm going to name now is I'm going to say I'm in the Mixolydian ocean. I'm going to make them all 7-note chords instead of 3-note chords to make it the most complex one so that we can look at all the most complex chords for all of them. So I can have a 7-note Mixolydian ocean. So I'm one step to the right of the Mixolydian, but it's going to be an Ionian shaped chord. So that means from a shape standpoint, I would be over here, Mixolydian ocean, and I'm going to build a shape from that that's going to be a major chord shape, right? So I can see that easily shape-wise. It's harder to map out the modal points. Or I can say it's going to be a 7-note Mixolydian ocean or 5.5 chord, right? It's a 7-note Nashville number 5.5 chord that will be a Dorian shaped chord, or which will have a Nashville number 2 shaped chord. So it would be over here, same point, but now I'm going to build the shape of a Dorian shape, which is a minor shape, but if I add the interval that would be different, which is, what is that, the 13, that would be different, then I would have that. I could build a 7-note Mixolydian ocean or X plus or Nashville number 5.5 chord, but it's going to have a Phrygian shape or Nashville number 3 shape. So now would be another minor shape, but it's going to have a difference on the 9th interval, which is the equivalent of the 2nd. I can have a 7-note Mixolydian or 3-note or whatever, but I'm going to do the 7-note Mixolydian plus or Mixolydian ocean or Nashville number 5.5 chord, which will have a Lydian shape, which is going to be a major shape, or Nashville number 4 shape. I can make a 7-note Mixolydian ocean X plus or 5.5 Nashville number 5.5 chord, which will have a Mixolydian shape, or a 5 Nashville number 5 shape, or a 7-note Mixolydian plus or Mixolydian ocean that has an Aeolian shape, a 7-note Mixolydian plus or Mixolydian ocean that has a Locrian shape. All right, but if I name them as the conventional name, let's add the conventional name for that one over here. In this case, we would name it not by the relative position, but by the G sharp or A flat. So if I double click this and say, where's this coming from? I'm going to mirror the shape up on the Ionian. So the Ionian shape is up here, right? So I need to move this up to the Ionian shape. This should be, oh, I lost it. I'm going to go back down. This should be up on the Ionian shape, the last one on the Ionian. And then I'm going to scroll back down, and then this one also needs to be the same. So it's going to be AV8. So then that would be, oh no, I did the wrong one. Undo. I should be, it should be down here. I should be down here. So that's going to be, something happened. Now hold on, now I'm messed up. Now the Lydian is messed up. All right, I think it's okay now. Let's double click down here. All right, that's why I made it red. So then I'm going to pull this up to the one on the Ionian. It's got to be careful when I pull it up. So that's the one. And now I'm going to scroll back down and say it's going to be AV8, and this one also needs to be AV8. Boom. So now we have a G sharp or A flat major 13 is what we would call it. But again, if I call it that, it doesn't, it's gonna, I don't know if I'm gonna change the shape or not, right? I don't know if I should move the entire shape up because I'm thinking of myself as a new collection of notes, or if I should keep the collection of notes the same and view that in the context of the song as something outside the collection of notes, which is more often the case. Let's do this. This one's gonna be a 7 note Mixolydian Ocean Dorian. So if I was just to call it a Dorian chord, or a minor chord of some kind, then I would say, okay, let's pull both. I think there's 2 I can pull up here at the same time. Let's just grab both of them and pull them up to the Dorian. So I'm going to pull both of them up one at a time. This is kind of tedious. To the Dorian right here, to doom. Right there, boom. And I'll just do them both at the same time and then enter. So now that's going to be a G sharp or A flat minor 13. So that looks correct. Right. Okay. And I feel like I made an error with this one up top. Maybe I made an error last time because this should be the Ionian. And I think I have it on, see, it's on the Lydian. That's not right. This should be up to the, oh, let me fix that one while I'm at this. Let me fix that one. That's not right. That's why it's messing me up. Let's pull this up. Pull that up to the Ionian. To the Ionian. Boom. It should be up here. Because they should have the same, they should look the same. Right? I could just copy these down. Once these are correct, I should be able to just copy these down, but replace this front bit with this bit. Maybe that would be the easier way to do it, because it's going to have the same naming convention all the way down. Same naming convention. Yeah. So let me try that. That way it would copy down easier. So how would I do that? I'd say, okay, I need to take, it's just like this formula where I take the right-hand side of it. I'm going to say this equals the right side of this, and then copy, or a comma, and then len of this whole thing, that whole thing, close it, -1, close it up, and that will give me that. But it's going to be -2, because now I have two letters in front of it, because it's that one. Let's say -2. Okay, so now I've removed the front bit. It's always going to be -2, and now that I'm working on ocean notes, so I'm going to double click on this and say, okay, then I just put in front of it, I just put this, and then and then boom, and then I can go into here, F4 that, F4 making it absolute, and I should be able to just copy that down, and so now I have the same formatting, or the same 7-note collections, because the format is Ionian, Dorian, Phrygian, Lydian, Mixolydian, but the front part of it is now G sharp or A flat. All right, now I'm going to remove all of, now it doesn't really matter. I'm going to have to keep doing that each time because I'm going to copy them one at a time. Okay, let's leave it at that. Okay. So then, why? Then this needs to be this 1.5. Let's look this up. I didn't have this. This is going to be equal X lookup. I want to find this Y plus comma. Where do I want to find that? I want to find that Y plus in here. Boom. So there it is right there. And then comma, return to me these right there, and enter. Okay. And then I'm going to F4 that. Let's F4 here, F4 here, F4 here, F4 here. Now, why didn't that copy down? Because if I do this, I didn't absolutize these sides. So I'm going to say F4 here, F4, 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 and then if I copy this down here, it should be cool. So now we're cool with that. So it's going to be a 5.5. All right. So now I need here, this is going to be what we need to change to be picking up. It needs to be comparing not between these two, but I need to make another one for Mixolydian so that it lines up to the 1 lines up to the 5, to the 5.5, Mixolydian Ocean. So I'm going to say, okay, so how do I do that? So I'm just going to go over here and say I'm just going to line this thing up. So I'm going to go up top and insert some more columns, right click and insert. And then I'm going to copy this bit from here down to here. I'll copy that bit. And then I need to put it down a little bit, maybe like right there. Paste. This is going to be equal to the Mixolydian, the red one. The red one. Boom, Mixolydian plus. Okay, and then these need to be a little bit whiter, a little bit larger so I can see what's happening. All right, and then I need a skinny. I'm going to take this skinny right here, format paint it, and put it in that skinny. Okay, so now this 1 ties out to that 5.5. So let's go ahead and format paint this one to the 5.5. Wait, let's unpaint this one. And then let's go to the 5.5 and make that one the yellow. And then I'm going to hide this bit. So I focus over here. I'm going to hide from the skinny to here. Right click and hide that. So now I can just move this over. Okay. So now I can say my modal points would be, it would be scale degrees 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, 11, and 13 if I make this the 1. But I don't want to make it the 1. I want to look at it from the perspective of the collection of notes we're in, which is a collection of notes of C. And I can't use the modal half-step system because we're working or building off one that's not in the collection of notes. So you have to use counting up by half steps starting on the node that we're at. So we're going to say, all right, so if I double click this, it's picking up the normal system, but I have to go over here and say, now this is going to be down to here. Let's pull this down to here. 5.5 is going to be our starting point because that's the Mixolydian Ocean, and that's going to be in the Ionian here. So I'm going to go from the Ionian to the Mixolydian set of numbers and enter. So that gives me the 5.5. Let's double click on that. Un-F4 this, F4, F4, getting rid of the dollar sign, unabsolutizing it. And then I'm going to copy that across. So now you get that. So let me see if I can check this real quick. So now I'm going to go over here and say, does that make sense? Let's copy this down and say, all right, if I was to count this in half steps, so I'm on the 5.5 and I want to go up from an Ionian perspective 4 half steps up to get to the third, 1, 2, 3, 4, that should be a 1 from a nodal perspective. So that's going to be a 1. So the second modal half step, third scale degree is a 1. That makes sense. And then if I go 7 up, then that should be the fifth, should be a 2.5, should be a 2.5, and the fourth modal half step, fifth scale degree is a 2.5. So I think that's correct. So let's just do this all the way across. I'm going to double click here and say I'll just do the same process. I'm going to move this down carefully. Careful. And then this needs to be moved to here, which is the Dorian. All right. And then enter. And then I absolute reference this. F4, F4, F4. Enter. Copy it across. Ba-bam. And then I'm going to do the same. I'll check them in a second to this one. I'm going to scroll over and say this needs to be brought down to here. Doom. And then this needs to be to the Phrygian on this side. Phrygian. It's not Phrygian. It's Phrygian. Phrygian. Okay, on F4 this. Phrygian. Phrygian. You say it like a barbarian. This is ancient Greek, you animal. Phrygian. Okay. I'm going to pull this down. And then this is going to be Y. Okay. And then enter. And then we'll F4 that bad doggy to get rid of the absolutization. Copy it across. Double click this one. And we're going to say, all right. Pull this down. Otra vez. Otra vez. Mixolid. Mixlydian. Chowder. Chowder. All right. F4s. Copy that across. And this one, double click. And this is going to be, we'll bring this down. It's going to be the Aeolian. So we'll bring it on over to the, oh, I lost it. I was doing so good. Lost it, man. You lost it. That's okay, I can find it again. I've got a keen nose. I can sniff it out. I'm going to say, and then I'm going to double click on this one. On F4. Enter. We'll copy that across. Okay. And otra vez. One more time for the crazy Locrian. Don't mess up the crazy Locrian. The crazy Locrian gets pissed if you mess it up. They start yelling at you. Okay. And then we'll copy that across. All right. So let's see if that makes sense. So we have the Ionian here, and then we've got the Lydian, and then we've got the Mixolydian. So these should be similar. The first modal half step, the zero modal half step, first scale degree is the same. Second modal half step, third scale degree is the same. That's the defining characteristic. That makes sense. Fourth modal half step, fifth scale degree is the same because that's the 7-note away, which is very constant. It's only different on the Locrian. And then the sixth modal half step, seventh scale degree has a difference on the Mixolydian, which makes sense because it has a minor 10-note away seventh. And then the ninth modal half step or eighth modal half step's ninth scale degree is the same for all of the majors. That makes sense. 10th modal half step, 11th scale degree is the same except for the Lydian because it has the augmented fourth or augmented 11th. And then the 12th modal half step, 13th scale degree is the same node. That makes sense. What about the minors? Here's a minor for the Dorian. Here's the Phrygian. Here's the Aeolian. So we have the same zero modal half step first scale degree. We have the same second modal half step third scale degree because it's still, they all have a 3-note away minor third or second modal half step or third. We have a fourth modal half step fifth scale degree, which is the same because once again, that's that 7-note away distance, which is the same on all of them except for the Locrian. We've got the sixth modal half step seventh scale degree, which is the same for all the minors, which is the 10-note away distance instead of the 11-note away distance for the 2 out of the 3 majors. We've got the 8-note away ninth scale degree, which is the same except for the Phrygian because it has the flat 9 or flat second, which is a 1-note away instead of 2 notes away from a local distance. We have the 10-note away 11th scale degree, which is the same because that's the perfect fourth, which is the same for all the minors. It's only the weird major of the Lydian that's off on that one. We've got the 12th modal half step 13th scale degree, which is going to be different on the Dorian because it has a more major distance on that, the 9-note away instead of the minor distance of the 8-note away. And then we've got the Locrian, which should be somewhat similar to the Aeolian, except we have a difference on the fourth modal half step fifth scale degree because it has a flat 5, as well as the 9 modal half or 8 modal half step ninth because it has that 1 note away distance there. Okay, so then we have I think these are populating properly. The distance in terms of half steps should be, the same. So that's what we're using to count the difference between these distances, but we have to count it in relative position in half steps instead of modal half steps. Because of that, we have the intervals, which we can still use the same naming convention, but I'd rather put the actual name of the half steps in front of it, as well as the modal distances, because again, you can't really count by modal distance or scale degree in this case, but you can use the name if you want to know what the distance is in half steps. Here's the notes, and here's, once again, the buckets that would be broken out if we use the normal naming convention, which, as you can see, is not very useful in terms of the context of the song generally. All right, let's go to the next one. So let's say we're going to go from the Mixolydian to the Aeolian. So I'm going to copy, once again, the Ionian. Let's see if I can do at least 2 of them this time. We'll copy the Ionian Ocean chord, the 1.1 chord, and we'll put that bad doggy right here. Bam! And then we're going to double click on this one, or I'm just going to say this equals the Aeolian now. So let's go up to the Aeolian, that one. But then I'm going to rename it, double clicking on it, and I'm going to say that one and then quotes, a plus, end quotes. So it's the Aeolian Ocean, making that red, because that's the one, that's our point of focus, making this one, format paint it back to yellow. So now we're on the Aeolian Ocean. So that means that we could have so now if I go to my fretboard, what am I looking at? I'm looking at this note, right? So now I'm in the Aeolian Ocean, the one right after the Aeolian, the 6.5 note. So I want to build off of that, and I can build 7 chords. I could say, well, I'm on that note, which is the Aeolian Ocean, Nashville number 6.5, and I can make, a major chord or a minor chord, or more specifically, an Ionian, a Dorian, a Phrygian, a Lydian, a Mixolydian, Aeolian, or Locrian chord off of that node, which I can see by shape, or I can map out by nodal point. So that's what we have here. 7-note Aeolian Ocean Ionian chord, 7-note Aeolian Ocean Dorian-shaped chord, 7-note Aeolian Ocean Phrygian-shaped chord, 7-note Aeolian Ocean Lydian-shaped chord, 7-note Aeolian Ocean Mixolydian-shaped chord, 7-note Aeolian-shaped chord, 7-note Aeolian Locrian-shaped chord. If they're only 3-note chords, you could call them 7-note Aeolian Ocean major or minor chords if you so choose that way as well. But that's the point. So then over here, this populated automatically, right? So we're on the Aeolian Ocean happens to be in the collection of notes. I need to fix this though. This would be, if I'm in the collection of notes around the key of C, I need to go around the horn to 1, which would be 13. So 13 minus 4 would be 11. Right? No. 13 minus 4 is 9. So that's going to give us the 13. I need that to be a 1, so I'm going to subtract 12 from it. But I'm going to do that universally, so it should be if tab, this plus this, comma, this plus this, comma, is less than 13, up to 12, but not over, comma, wait a sec, this, no comma there, less than 13, comma, then do that, if not, comma, do that minus 12. Boom. All right, so that should give us a 1. Now it needs to be 1.5 though, that would be the Aeolian. I want it to go to Aeolian plus, so it's going to be 1, so it's going to be, needs to be a 10. Wait, 10. This all needs to be 10. 10 and 10. So yeah, it should be a 2, which would be, right, A sharp. Okay, A sharp, B flat. That's the note in the collection of notes around the key of C. So now that these names, now I'm going to fix this one real quick. So this needs to be the right. So now I'm picking, this formula is actually correct. It's just that I want to pick the right part of this cell, and this also needs to be that cell. Boom. And then this needs to be not a 2, not a 1, but a 2, because there's 2 letters in front of it, because that's representing the ocean note. So we'll say enter, boom. So we have a B or A sharp or B flat major 13 for the one built off of the Aeolian node, which is an Ionian or major chord. And then I can copy this down. If it was built off of the Aeolian node, Aeolian ocean node, but it's a Dorian chord, you'd have a Dorian naming convention. Hold on. This needs to be F4 right here, F4, and then copied down. So this would be an A sharp or B flat minor 13, A sharp or B flat minor flat 13, flat 9 if it was a Phrygian chord that you're building off of the Aeolian Ocean. Aeolian Ocean Lydian chord would be a 7-note chord, A sharp or B flat major 13 sharp or augmented 11. And then this would be an A, if it was off the Mixolydian, an A sharp or B flat 13, A sharp or B flat minor flat 13 if you're building an Aeolian 7-note Aeolian chord off of the Aeolian Ocean note. Not the Aeolian, but the Aeolian Ocean. All right. So then if I go over here, now I need to make another one of these for the Aeolian Ocean. So I'm going to say, all right, I'll just insert some more cells, right-click, insert, do some more cells around here, copy this bad doggy, and I'm going to paste it, copy that, paste it down, I don't know, 2 cells maybe. We'll make it wide enough so I can see what's happening. And then this is going to be equal to the Aeolian, bam. All right, let's put a skinny in between right here. That AS needs to be a skinny. So let's take this skinny, format, paint it, make that skinny right there. Okay, and then that 1 needs to be lined up to our point here at 6.5. So let's make that the yellow one, needs to be here. And this one is going to be not yellow. We're going to count up the half steps from there. So I'll just pull this down to right there so that when we check that, so this needs to be lined up to there. So we need to bring this whole thing down 1 more cell. So I'm gonna grab it like that, and let's just grab it so I can see it, see what's happening as clearly as possible. So now that 1 is lined up here. I don't need this one right now, so I'm going to hide from the skinny over to here so it doesn't get in my way. Don't delete it. Hide it. Hide it. All right. So now we can hide these too, because I don't need these. These are in the way. Let's hide that. Let's hide these. Those are in the way. Okay. So then we're going to go over here and say, all right, double click on this bad doggy, and I just need to move all these over once again. So this needs to be the Ionian, which is going to start. All right, be careful this time. You don't gonna mess it up. I want to get them all done without losing it. Okay, so that's a 6.5, and then I unabsolutize. 6.5 unabsolutize. Let's do them all. Well, I'll do them all first. I feel pretty confident. So I'm going to, because this is faster, I'll do them all first, and then I'll fix the rest of it. So this is going to go down to here. Boom. And this is going to go down to here. To that one. And let's just go enter, and let's just do the next one. Double click on it. Do the next one. Do the next one. Get the job done. I'm going to bring this one down. Be more efficient about this. To there, to there. Okay, boom. Next one, F2 on the keyboard. Does it automatically. And then I'm going to go up here and say, all right, boom. Then I'm just going to pull this one down to here. And then this one, I'm going to go boom, down. I think I was on the Lydian. I'm pretty sure. And then boom. And then F2 on the keyboard. we're going up again. Now we're on the mixo lid. So I'll bring this down, and then bring this one over to the mixo lid, to that one, and then enter F2 on the keyboard so it goes in there automatically, because we ain't wasting no time. And then we'll pull this one down, and now we're on the Aeolian. So okay, here to the Aeolian. One more time, enter F2 to go into the cell, and then boom, and we'll bring this one down, and then we'll pull this one down and over to the Aeolian, enter, and then I'm just going to go into all of these and F4 that one. So I'm going to say F4, F4, F4 to get rid of it, F2 into here, F4, F4, F4 to get rid of it, F2 right there, F4, F4, F4 to get rid of it, F2 right there, F4, F4, F4 to get rid of it, F2 right there, F4, 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 F2 right there, F4, 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 enter, and then I can copy all of these across, and bam. All right, let's check them. So this is going to be a major right here. So it's going to, on the major, it goes to the third. So if I was to look at it over here and say, okay, what does that make sense? If I went a major third up, it would be 4 half steps up. 1, 2, 3, 4 should give me a 2, and then 7 half steps up should give me a 4 to give me the third and the fifth. So it should be wait a second. I'm starting at 6.5, and then I go up 1, 2, 3, 4, should give me a 2, and it doesn't. Something has gone horribly wrong. Did I copy this across? Maybe I didn't. Did I copy this across? Okay, there it goes. 2, 4. Okay, I think that's right. Let's copy all of them across. Okay. And then I can do a comparison this way for Ionian to Lydian, Mixolydian. So once again, they should have all the same, except for we have a difference on the 6 modal half step 7th scale degree for the Mixolydian, because it has a 10 note away minor 7 instead of a 11 note away major 7 like the other two. And then we have a difference here for the Lydian shaped chord, because it has an augmented 4th, which could also be an augmented 11. Everything else is the same. That looks good. Let's compare the minors. Here's the main minor down here. So it has all the same stuff for the first 3 notes of the chord. And then same with the 7, because it still has this 10 note away 7. But we have a difference here on the Phrygian for the 8 modal half step 9th scale degree, because it has a 1 note away 2nd, which it would be also a 9th. And then we have the same here, and then a difference on the 12th modal half step or 13th scale degree for, wait a sec, this one for the Dorian, right? Because it has a major distance of 9 notes away from the local distance instead of 8 notes away for the equivalent of the 12th modal half step or 13th scale degree, which would be the 5th modal half step or 6th scale degree from the local. All right, and then the Locrian is going to be different than the Aeolian in that it's got the flat 5, 4th modal half step, 5th scale degree, and it has a minor 8th modal half step or 9th scale degree as well, similar to the Phrygian on that one. All right, everything else I think is MUI B to the N should populate automatically. So coolio. So let's see if we can finish this thing off. Let's do one more. Aeolian, we're going to go down. We're going down this time. Which one haven't we done yet? We haven't done the Dorian. Dorian is the one So I'll copy this. Don't be duh in me. This is going to be equal to the Dorian. Dorian. Double click, and we're going to say and. That's not an and, that's a $sign. And quotes, plus, end quotes. Okay. So then we're going to say, all right. So that's going to be a 2.5 Dorian ocean. That makes sense. But the Dorian in relation to the collection of notes around the key of C would be the 4. So that would be C. But I need to, the Dorian would be a D. So 4, 5, 6. And then needs to be plus 3. Wait. What? What? Undo that. So I'm going to double click here. It should be plus 3, right? Yeah, because that's going to be the Dorian ocean, which will be D sharp or E flat. It's going to be D plus. So that makes sense, I think. Okay. So then we'll just fix our this. So this is going to be equal to now wait a sec. I messed up. Let's undo this. Hold on a sec, because I'm going to copy the Ionian over. So I'm going to copy the Ionian, not the last one we did. Copy the Ionian plus, because it has the absolute references. That's what I said I was going to do. And then I'm going to copy this down here. Boom. And then make this Dorian. So we'll say this is going to be Dorian. Dorian. So this is going to be Dorian, and then it's going to be that and plus. All right. And then this cell is going to be equal to the C plus 3. Gives me, yeah, that's correct. But I want to make it so it doesn't go over 12. So I'm going to say if we change the collection of notes at the top of the worksheet. So if tab, this copy is less than 13, then do that. But if not, do that minus 12. Boom. Let's make this red, because that's the one we're on at the time. And this one needs to be yellow. Let's just take that, or orange, or whatever that is, whatever you want to call it. Whatever you want to call it, man. Makes no never mind to me. So if I go here, I'm going to say, then this is correct, but I want to take the right side of this one above it now. So, by the way, I could just fix this one by copying these. I'll just copy these and put them here. Bam. And does that do it correctly? So that's right. But now this needs to be, I'll just take this and put it to right there. And then F4. And then enter. And so now I should copy that down, and that'll put the front bit where it needs to be. Bam. All right, so I think that's correct. So now we've got a Dorian ocean. So if we're building off the Dorian ocean on the fretboard over here, here's a Dorian. So now we're going to be building right there, and I can call it a major shape or a minor shape off of it's a Dorian ocean, a 2.5, major shape, minor shape, or more specifically, name it by the intervals of the modes, meaning it's an Ionian mode, or a Dorian mode, and so on and so forth. All right, so let's go back on over. So that's going to be the names are going to be the same, except the starting point of it is going to be the D sharp or E flat. I'd rather name it with this convention, because that's going to tell us that it's an ocean chord from the perspective of what we're looking at. I need to add then another collection of notes over here, where this needs to be lined up to 7, right? So this needs to be lined up to 7. No, what did I say? It needs to be lined up to 2.5. So 2.5 that this needs to be lined up to. Is that right? Well, let me just add them first. I'm going to add some cells. Right click, insert. I'm going to copy the last bit we did from here down to here for the Aeolian, and I'll paste it here. And then I'm going to make this is going to be equal to the Dorian plus Dorian Ocean. Let's make these a little bit wider. Okay, and then I'm gonna take the skinny, make this a skinny, and then I'll delete the extra one. We don't need this bit. I'm gonna delete that, and then I'm gonna make a skinny over here since this is the last one. Let's make this a skinny over here, and then I'm gonna hide from this skinny over to here, so we don't need that anymore. Hide that. Don't delete it. Hide it. And then the Dorian, I have to actually move it up. See, right? That makes sense. So I'm gonna because now we're going back up because it's actually to the 2 up top. So I think that's the one that we need to be, it's 2.5 that we're tying out to. So then this one needs to be tied out to that 2.5. So let's just grab this. I'm going to cut it this time. And I'll just try it and see if I made it. So I did it perfectly on the first get. No, I need to cut it again. Maybe up here. So now it's too high by 1. So 1 down. So I'm going to Control X right there. So there it is. Now the 2.5 lines up to that 1. So I think that's correct. Okay. So if that's correct, then I should be able to go down here and double click on these and just move them all over. Just do it. I'm going to assume it's correct and just do it one all at the same time. So I'll pull this down here and I'll pull this down here. Enter F2 to get in this next cell. So I'm going to go over again. And once again, I'm going to pull this down. Oh, I messed up. Dang it. I was doing so good. I was trying to speed up. All right. But you have to speed up with precision. So I'm going to say we're going to pull this down. And then this is moving over to the Dorian on this side. Boom. Enter F2 and then scroll up. Okay. So now this is going to be moved down to here. And now we're on the Phrygian on this side. But it needs to line up to there. Phrygian. Enter F2. Scroll up just so I can see that Dorian bit. And then this needs to, there's one more down, up just a smidge. This needs to be going down. Ah, dang it. Okay. Lost it. Getting tired, man. You're getting tired. Alright, let's try it again. I ain't tired. Only wussies get tired. I can do this all day long. I'm going to say this is going... what is this? The Lydian. Okay. Enter F4. Scrolling up. And then over. What happened there? Double click. I F4'd. I'm trying to F2 to go over. So now we're on this one, which is going to be the mixolid. So I'll copy this one down or bring this one down. This one needs to go over to the mixolid. All right, enter F2 to go into the cell. So now we're on this one, which is the aeolin. So I'll pull this one down to the aeolin. Pull this one down and over to that aeolin. One more, enter F2 to go into the cell. Last one. Don't mess up. Don't look stupid on the last one. I've never looked stupid in my life. Oh, I've never. Okay. Bring this one down. Okay. Enter. All right, so now we'll just F4, unabsolutize these. F4, 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 enter F2 right there, F4, 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 enter, F2 right there, F4, 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 enter, F2 right there, F4, 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 enter, F2 right there, F4, 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 F2 right there, F4, 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 enter, F2 right there, F4, 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 enter. Copy that across. Zoom. Check these. So 2.55. So let's see if I was to count across this way in half steps. So I'm going to copy my numbering system, cut, paste that right there. So if I was going to go a major third up, 4 half steps, 1, 2, 3, 4 should be a 5, and then 4, 5, 6, 7 should be a 6.5. So the should be a 4 and a 6.5 if we go across. It doesn't look like that's what I have. I've got a 5 and a 6.5. I'm at a 2.5. If I go down 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, it's a 5 and a 6.5. Yeah, that's right. That's actually correct. Okay, so I think that's right. If I compare it this way and say, okay, does this make sense if I had the Ionian and then I had the Lydian and Mixolydian? We have the same 0 modal half step, first scale degree, second modal half step, third scale degree, fourth modal half step, fifth scale degree. That makes sense. And then we have a difference for the Mixolydian on the 6th modal half step, 7th scale degree. That makes sense. The same 8th modal half step, 9th scale degree makes sense. And then we have a difference on the 10th modal half step, 11th scale degree with the Lydian, because it has an augmented 4th or augmented 11th. And then we have the same 12th modal half step, 13th scale degree. Makes sense. That's the 9 note away distance. Let's try the minors. We have a same 0 note away first modal half step, second modal half step, 3rd scale degree, 4th modal half step, 5th scale degree, 6th modal half step, 7th scale degree, 8th modal half step, 9th scale degree has a difference on the Phrygian because it has the flat second or flat 9, 1 note away distance for the local distance, and then we have the same 10 note away 11th scale degree, and we have a difference for the Phrygian. A difference for the Phrygian for the 12th modal half step, 13th scale degree. No, wait a second here. No, that's because I have the wrong one. That's the Mixolydian. It should be these here, right? And that makes sense. And I think that's right. Okay, I think I have it. And then these two, the Aeolian and it has a difference on the 4th modal half step, 5th scale degree, and a difference on the 8th modal half step, 9th scale degree. Okay, and then the modal points are the same. The note half steps, I think, are populating down. They should have the same distance between the modal points. That makes sense. And then we can use the same interval naming system, but really all it's given us is the distance. If we use that similar with the modal half steps, we have to think about that name giving us the distance in half steps, not in scale degrees or in modal half steps. And then we have our notes, which are populated. So there it is. So that's the idea on those. Obviously, once again, in practice, you would know this by shape. I think if you used this naming convention, then it would be easy, but actually mapping out the nodal points, more difficult, but doable. And if you were to memorize those modal points, then again, those would be the same for all 12 collections of 7 notes.